The atmosphere inside Studio 6B was beyond electric. It was charged with the kind of celebrity wattage few guests could generate. The moment Leonardo DiCaprio walked onto the stage and took his seat in the guest chair, the collective energy of the room became immense. The crowd, a mix of dedicated cinephiles and devoted fans, roared its approval, a sound of absolute, unconditional adoration. Jimmy Fallon, the master of ceremonies, cracked a few perfectly timed opening jokes, and Leo responded with that calm, effortless confidence that had solidified his image as a cultural legend for over 3 decades. He was the picture of control, charm, and untouchable cool, a man who had mastered the art of being famous. But beneath the surface of the typical late-night gaiety, Jimmy's demeanor held a rare, unsettling sobriety. He was aware that the effortless confidence radiating from his guest, the very foundation of his public persona, was about to be profoundly tested. This was not a night for lighthearted party games. It was an evening dedicated to confronting the deepest, most existential dread currently sweeping through Hollywood, the same industry Leo had dominated and defined for generations. After only a few minutes of seemingly harmless, light conversation about his latest environmental activism, his passion projects, and recent demanding film roles, Jimmy executed the deliberate, powerful signal that always preceded a major, unscripted moment. He suddenly placed his note cards face down on the desk, aligning them with unnerving precision, the gentle thud echoing in the sudden lull of the conversation. He leaned in toward Leo, his entire posture shifting, his gaze intense, betraying the seriousness of the impending reveal. "Leo, tonight I want to show you something deeply personal," Jimmy stated, his voice stripped of its usual playful buoyancy, becoming steady and respectful. "Something that you, and certainly the world, have never seen before. It touches on something all of us in this business, the business of identity, are currently deeply afraid of." Leo, sensing the monumental shift in the room's energy and Jimmy's tone, laughed softly, a nervous, defensive sound that did not quite manage to reach his famous blue eyes. "That sounds dangerous, Jimmy. I hope it's not old acting school audition tapes. I can handle the climate change speeches, but not those," he quipped, attempting desperately to restore the shattered atmosphere of levity. Jimmy did not laugh back. He simply held the intense gaze. The air was thick with palpable anticipation, the kind that precedes a major shock. If the deep vulnerability of Leo's confrontation with his AI self resonates with you, please subscribe to our channel and hit the notification bell now. Your support helps us share these crucial, humanizing moments of profound, unexpected honesty from The Tonight Show archives. With a subtle, almost imperceptible hand gesture to the control room, the entire massive grid of studio lights dimmed rapidly. The lighting change was dramatic, signifying an immediate departure from the fun of late-night TV. The massive, high-definition screen behind them, the usual display for lighthearted graphics, flickered to life, capturing the silent, rapt attention of every person in the room. A scene appeared, dark, intensely cinematic, atmospheric, with the soft, persistent sound of falling rain creating an immediate sense of mood and drama. The visual language was instantly familiar, mimicking the high production value of a major studio thriller, and then the audience gasped. It wasn't a polite talk show gasp. It was a sudden, unified, involuntary sound of collective shock and bewilderment. On the screen was Leonardo DiCaprio, unquestionably. He possessed the perfect bone structure, the intense, piercing blue eyes, the subtle, characteristic downward tilt of the head. But simultaneously, he was fundamentally not the real Leonardo DiCaprio. The subtle flaws, the tiny earned lines of experience, the inherent flawed humanity that anchored his actual presence, all were chillingly absent. It was an AI-generated version of Leo, younger, impossibly perfect, eerily flawless. The recreation was so precise, it bordered on the grotesque. He stood in a dramatic, dimly lit setting that looked like the decaying interior of a Gothic estate, delivering an intense, melancholic monologue that the living, breathing Leonardo DiCaprio had absolutely never performed. The digital perfection was unnerving. It transcended normal human reality. The silence in the studio was absolute, reverent, and heavy. Then, The AI Leo spoke, his voice an uncanny, pitch-perfect replication of the real actor's famous timbre and vocal intensity, yet delivered with a chilling, heartbreaking calmness. He articulated a question that cut straight to the core of the human condition and creative relevance in the age of digital replication. Sometimes I wonder if the world even needs the real me anymore. Real Leo, sitting less than 10 feet from the terrifying digital mirror, froze completely. The last trace of his famous, effortless smile completely evaporated from his face, replaced by an expression of profound, intellectual shock and growing personal disturbance. His eyes, those famous, intensely expressive eyes, widened slightly, fixed and locked onto his perfect digital ghost. AI Leo continued his unsettling existential query, articulating the dark, suppressed undercurrent of every artist's fear in the digital age. If they can recreate me flawlessly, if they can perfect me, improve me, remove the mistakes, the imperfections, the delays of human performance, then who am I truly if my shadow is better, cheaper, and faster than my substance? The entire studio held its collective breath. The audience members, deeply implicated in the drama, looked wildly between the flawless digital phantom and the real man, grappling with his sudden televised obsolescence. The moment was no longer about technology. It was a devastating confrontation with identity itself. Jimmy abruptly, decisively cut the video feed, a protective, necessary action, signaling that the experiment had gone deeper, faster than even he had anticipated. He swung his chair around quickly, turning back to face Leo directly, his own face etched with serious, growing concern. Real Leo did not move for several long seconds. He remained frozen, leaning forward, his elbows resting heavily on his knees, his gaze fixed on the blank, suddenly dark screen, as if the space itself held the traumatic image. It was clear he was grappling with an immediate, profound existential crisis. Finally, the living, breathing man whispered, the sound thin and fragile, laced with a tremor of awe and dread. That wasn't me, but it knew me. It understood the language of my soul. The realization was staggering. The AI hadn't just copied his appearance. It had seemingly synthesized his vulnerabilities and translated his deepest, most guarded anxieties into performance. Jimmy swallowed hard, his voice strained and quiet. What did you genuinely feel watching that, Leo? Beyond the shock, what was the emotion? Leo took a slow, deep, deliberate breath, a visible attempt to anchor himself firmly to the present reality of the studio floor. His voice cracked just slightly when he spoke, a tiny human failure of control, the kind of raw vulnerability he almost never permits himself to show on camera. The crack affirmed his reality. I've spent my entire career, Jimmy, trying to be irreplaceable, trying to push boundaries, take risks, and find new, uncomfortable truths that only I could bring to the screen, he confessed, the admission heavy with the weight of his legacy. But watching that perfect sterile imitation, I realized I might not be. I realized that the core principle I built my entire life on, my absolute uniqueness, can now be replicated and terrifyingly, maybe even streamlined into a commercial product. A few audience members, deeply affected by the actor's raw, honest exposure, wiped their eyes. Jimmy was silent for a long moment, visibly fighting back a massive wave of emotion, biting his lower lip hard to maintain his professional composure. The silence itself became the most powerful, affirming response in the room. Leo continued, articulating the crucial, saving distinction between the digital copy and the original man. It wasn't the perfect face that truly scared me, Jimmy. That's just technology, easily built. It was the parts of me it somehow understood and then manipulated. The subtle hesitation, the moments of personal insecurity, the quiet, focused intensity, the parts I never deliberately put into a role. It felt like looking at a version of myself that never fully existed, a potential shadow that could not only replace my work, but might actually outlive me in the public consciousness, continuing to perform long after I'm gone. He acknowledged the unsettling digital immortality that was simultaneously a terrifying threat to his artistic relevance. Jimmy, recognizing the moment of profound philosophical and personal exposure, leaned slightly closer, his voice dropping to a near whisper. He offered the ultimate test, the final challenge that would define the segment. "Leo, do you want to see more of the script they generated? Do you want to see where the AI took your character, your digital self?" Leo didn't even pause to consider the artistic curiosity. His response was immediate, visceral, and absolute. "No." That single word, delivered with the sudden, sharp finality of a closing door, hit the studio harder than any complex, lengthy monologue ever could. It was an affirmation of his humanity, a definitive, profound rejection of the digital self. Jimmy leaned forward, his eyes shining with unshed emotion, seizing the moment of ultimate hard-won clarity. He had brought the icon to the brink, and now he offered the ultimate lifeline. "Leonardo, AI can copy your face. It can flawlessly clone your voice. It can synthesize your past performances into something new, something perfect. But there's one single thing it can never replicate, not with all the data in the world." Leo looked up from his internal contemplation, his eyes wet but intensely focused on the host. "What's that, Jimmy?" he asked, the question laced with a fragile, aching need for personal validation. Jimmy's voice softened to a pitch of fragile, deeply human honesty. "The parts of you that break, the moments of genuine doubt, the fear, the struggle, the real time and sacrifice it took you to get here. That is your humanity, Leo, and that's what makes you absolutely, completely irreplaceable." The room erupted. The entire audience rose as one into a standing ovation, not loud, chaotic, or wild, but gentle, emotional, and deeply human, a massive, sincere surge of respect for the man who chose his flawed, complex reality over perfect digital falsehood. Leonardo DiCaprio, the icon who had confronted his own technological ghost, simply nodded, his eyes wet with earned tears, and whispered the only word left to say, "Thank you." It became, instantly, one of the most powerful and widely shared Tonight Show moments ever aired, not because the AI created something technically brilliant, but because Leonardo DiCaprio realized and reaffirmed the one thing technology could never replicate, quantify, or steal: his essential, complex, and fragile humanity. He left the stage a different man, having chosen the dignity of his real, imperfect self over the terror of his perfect, endless shadow. The moment redefined the entire conversation about AI in Hollywood, shifting the focus from technological capability to the profound, enduring value of the human soul. The power of that moment, the silence, the profound question, the one word "no," confirmed that vulnerability remains the highest currency in art and identity. Leo didn't need the AI to define his legacy. His honesty in rejecting its perfection solidified it forever. The collective standing ovation wasn't for the actor, but for the man who chose to champion human imperfection. Next, we delve into a true story of an emotional sacrifice. We explore the unbelievable moment Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson broke his own rule and risked his career to help a paralyzed fan. A spontaneous, genuine act of empathy that left Jimmy Fallon and the audience utterly speechless. His actions proved that true strength is found not in muscle, but in boundless compassion.